Welcome to the Bolo Chronicles, a show celebrating the written work of MacEwan students and alumni featured in the Bolo Tie Collective anthology series. I'm your host, Emma Morrison. Today's guest is a MacEwan student named Zac Jickling. Zac is currently studying psychology and has been published in other anthologies prior to this one. Join Zac and I as we chat about his use of personal experience in writing poetry.
Immediately after, I went home for Thanksgiving for the first time, and those feelings were fresh in my mind, and I just put them down on paper.
So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's get right into the episode. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how your writing journey started and how it has evolved over time.
So I'm originally from a small town in northern Alberta. It's about 20 minutes north of Grand Prairie. It's called Sexsmith. Not many people know where it is, but I grew up there. I was there for the last 18 years of my life. And I don't know, I've always been reading. When I was younger, I would read 4 or 5 hours a day. My mother and my grandmother and just my entire family was really big on literacy. And yeah, from a young age, I was reading above my level, and then that just transferred over into writing. I really started picking up writing towards the end of high school.
Yeah.
As a sort of therapeutic standpoint.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I really fell in love with it. And even like outside of the therapeutic standpoint, now I just do it as just a regulation, as something to do on the weekends or something to do whenever.
That's so cool. So, talking about books, what author has significantly influenced your writing style or like your format or even like just you in general in your life?
I've really enjoyed Shane Coixon. Shane Coixon is a poet from Yellowknife. He does some really, really impressive poems. I've never seen anyone do spoken word like him. He has poems like The Crickets Have Arthritis, Trolls, and To This Day. And all of those are such profound poems, and I really try to emulate his style. He does a lot of stuff in free verse, and his metaphors are always top. They're always amazing, and he's just really been someone that I aspire to be.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I find the authors in our life really make a huge impact on the way that we write and the way that we see the world. And in terms of writing, let's talk a little bit about your anthology piece, which is so exciting. How does it feel to like hold your published piece in your hands?
It's a little surreal. I've done this is my first time publishing poetry. I've been in anthologies before back home. I've done like short stories and sent those into the library for competitions, but this is my first time doing poetry, and especially with the Bolo Tie Collective, it's such a lovely group of people, and to have the final product and see how beautifully it turned out, I'm elated. I'm over the moon.
That's so wonderful. So what is your favorite sentence, paragraph, or part of your anthology piece, and why is it your favorite? It could be the title, it could be just like the theme itself. So what is your favorite part, sentence? You can even read it if you like.
Okay, so in this book, I have 2 poems. I have one that's called Delusions of the Telephone Wire, and one that's called Homecoming. And in Homecoming, there is a line that goes, absence warrants accusation. And the entire poem is really just about how when you move away to a city, when you move somewhere outside of your normal environment and then you come back home, your home doesn't feel quite like your home anymore.
Yeah.
And so I don't mean to say that it's accusation in really a negative sense, but there is something a little bit different when you go out and then come back. All of your interactions with your friends back home, all of even your family members, I just noticed it's a little bit different. It's a little bit outside of your norm, and it's something that really I struggled with the first couple times that I went home.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, I've gotten used to it, but no, that line I am quite proud of.
It really resonates, especially like moving out of like your parents' house and everything. Even sometimes when I go back to my parents' house or see my younger siblings, I don't come from like a very far away place, like way up north, but even kind of that disconnect from them, I can really relate to that line.
And well, like even for me, the town that I grew up in has 2,500 people.
Wow.
And that's the nearest town. My house itself is about a 5-mile drive, so that's about 8 minutes separated from the town. And it's just such a different life from being in Edmonton, and it's a really big shift. And I didn't really notice as big of a shift when I moved into Edmonton, but then when I came back, it was really something that really struck me and took a little bit to get used to.
That's I feel that really deep down the soul. That's such a wonderful like line that really resonates. In terms of like your creative process when starting a new project, or even with this poem in this anthology, did you use that feeling and that experience to help you write the poem? Is that where like that kind of started, or was it just like something that came off the top of your head?
Yeah, so Homecoming in particular is very much like something rooted in my experiences, and like I wrote it immediately after I went home for Thanksgiving for the first time, and those feelings were fresh in my mind, and I just put them down on paper. I put in a couple things about my town, a couple symbols from around my house, and all of that really just, I don't know, I just added more and more to the poem,
Right.
and it just ended up being this thing. The other one that I have in here, which is Delusions of the Telephone Wire, that one I wrote at like 1 a.m. when I was really tired, and I just put words on paper, and I had no idea what I was saying at the time. And then that was also odd, because then I would talk to my editors and they're like, oh, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does this represent? And I'm like, I don't know. I was so...
Did you just like feel like you were striking like genius, like a creative streak, like at 1 a.m. in the morning?
Not necessarily. I was just, more than anything, I was bored and I couldn't go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, you know what? Instead of just lying in bed and like scrolling on my phone, let's just go and do something half productive. And then I just wrote that. And that happens a lot, actually. A lot of times when I'm writing, I don't have really a thought behind it when I start writing, and it just kind of naturally evolves on the paper.
That's awesome. I know some people with their creative process, it's very much like out there and sporadic, and some people, they have to go through different steps to get to that process. So in terms of that, what themes do you find yourself returning to in your work, and why are they important to you?
Yeah, I found I write a lot about my home. I write a lot about my home and my experiences with rural and urban living. And like with the one in this anthology about the disconnect, and other times it's just like specific parts of urban life, specific parts of rural life. That is something that kind of goes through all of my work. And outside of that, I would also say like I tend to focus on aging a lot, even when I'm not trying to. I always find that old age or even youth really gets tied into my poem, because it's just so interesting to me to see how someone's life changes and how their experiences changes as they age, and how they view society and how society views them. I grew up, when I was younger, I grew up with a bunch of seniors. I had more seniors in my life than kids. And I don't know, really just that frame of mind, like old world frame of mind, is something that I just constantly find in my work, even when I'm not trying to.
That's incredible. I do find that like the world around us really does affect the way that we do write and the way that we see creativity in a way. So that's so cool that you were able to bring that experience and put it into your writing. You said you were in psychology, right?
Yes.
I had another person on that also took psych, and I did ask the same question because it's so interesting to ask. How do you balance your personal experiences with storytelling in your writing? And I did ask about the mental health aspect. So how do you prevent creative burnout? How do you prevent like creative blocks, and keep that balance where you can still create like healthy?
Really, for me, something that I really focus on to have my work be healthy and have my work be sustainable is I don't terribly focus on my personal experiences. A lot of my work is metaphor, and it's not really about me, even though there is bits and pieces that may reflect my own experiences and my feelings at the time. It's not always. I know some people who write about trauma very often and about their own personal experiences, and that is very powerful and it's very moving, but it does lead to a lot of burnout, and poems in that way become very emotionally tolling. So I just let my work be as it is. I try to separate my personal life from my work as much as possible, even though regardless, like some of my personal life will go into my work, but I don't want writing to be my only source of regulation. I have other things that I do that help me with my own mental health. I go to the gym, I go and hang out with friends, I go to church. Each one of these things in isolation perhaps would lead to extreme burnout in that area. Like if I was only going to exercise or only going to the gym, in that specific area, I would fail and I would falter. Same thing with writing. If I were only doing writing, I would fail and I would falter. It's really about a balance in your life.
Do you find that because you have balance, you find inspiration from your other hobbies and like hanging out with your friends, going to the gym? Do you find that it helps spark your creativity when it comes to writing?
Yeah, I think that most of my ideas that really strike me, I don't have when I'm sitting at a desk. I have when I'm just simply like on a walk, or I was in church yesterday and there were a couple ideas that popped into my head, but it's not really like just a natural process of life at this point.
What advice would you give to aspiring writers looking to find their voice or beginning creative blocks, anything like that? Do you have any advice?
One thing that really helped me is just like keep writing. I know that a lot of people say that, but honestly, keep writing. Edmonton is a great place. If you are in Edmonton, there's loads and loads of poetry events. Soul Speak, there's the Haven Reading Series, the Olive Reading Series, the Bolo Live with the Bolo Tie Collective, which is right at MacEwan. And all of the people that you find in those events, like they help, and all of your experiences with them will help add to your work. You really want to just overwhelm yourself, drown yourself with things that you're interested in, things that will lead to your work. Read, watch videos of people doing spoken word. And it is like that you can steal bits and pieces and then incorporate that into your work, and your work will be better for it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that advice. I've gotten so much good writing advice and just creative advice in general from guests today. And I find that I kind of am now reflecting on my own process. So I hope the listeners are like, yeah, I can, add that in. How do you see this? This one might be a little difficult. I've gotten varying answers for this one, but how do you see the future of literature evolving in today's digital age with everything going on? Like, what do you think?
To be quite honest, I was quite worried for a while, because I want to say maybe 5 years ago, there was really a big push towards Insta poetry. And I know some people really enjoy Insta poetry and like really short poems and things like that. And short poems can be really well done. But my issue with that is I find that they can be quite shallow at times, quite low. And I think that, of course, that's their own creative process. This is just my own opinion. But I feel like in the last little while, there's been a bit of a shift towards not necessarily an elitism, but a really big focus into very well structured, very well hitting, like high end literature, whether that's poetry, whether that's novels or anything else. There's really been this push for high level work. And to have high level work, for the most part, it needs to be more than 1 or 2 lines. And so I think that will just continue. I think that the poems will perhaps get longer and longer. I think that long form poetry is going to start coming back. I would really enjoy to see more long form poetry. Yeah, I just think people are really going to buckle down and look at quality over quantity, because like with Insta poetry, with short poems, you can produce a lot. You can produce a lot very quickly, but maybe the quality isn't there.
Right.
So I would really anticipate that as a collection, the book won't be as long, but the poems in that book will be longer.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, because even with videos now, a lot of it, instead of being short form, have now become high quality long form. And so I think that'll take that turn in literature as well. And I hope to see that, because I know quality over quantity. What sparked your interest in joining the Bolo Tie Collective?
The Bolo Tie Collective, I started writing about 4 months prior, just like writing in general. I started writing about 4 months prior to when I came to Edmonton. And I was really looking for writing groups. There weren't really any back home, or if there was, I wouldn't be there for long enough time to really have a root in it. So I came down here, and one of the first things I saw when I was looking at clubs was the Bolo Tie Collective. And so I went there, and yeah, it was lovely, and I've been there ever since.
That's so incredible. So what has been the most impactful moment for you at the Bolo Tie Club?
It would have to be the first time I went to Bolo. The first time I went to Bolo, I was brand new to Edmonton, brand new to the school. I didn't know anyone, and let alone I didn't know anyone who would want to go to a poetry event. So I went, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do this for myself. And I went and sat down. Me and another, now she's one of my best friends, but we were, again, like I was by myself, she was by herself, brand new students, like on the opposite sides, super awkward. And like I said, I didn't know anyone. So I went over, I sat down, we started talking, and she has been such a big part of my life. I don't know what I would do without her. And I would not know her without the Bolo Club, without Bolo Live having a space to meet her. And I'm very thankful for that.
That's wonderful. Do you find that our sense of community is what has really helped you grow into writing a lot more, or even into your poetry, or going to these live events? Like, do you find that's...
I have really enjoyed the community. There's some amazing people, some amazing writers, and they're all so supportive. It's really nice to see. It's really nice to see a writing community in Edmonton, and it definitely, like, the writing in and of itself is nice, but it's not something that should be done in isolation. It's really good to share and bounce your work off of other people, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do that in the Bolo Tie Collective or in other forms.
How has the Bolo Tie helped you in your writing career and endeavors?
So the Bolo Tie was really my first crack at writing poetry. I had never really done poetry before. I'd never done spoken might. And all of those things, like those first experiences, were really all tied to Bolo. And now in this past year, one of my editors actually for this anthology has been, she keeps sending me events to go to. She keeps on sending me things for Soul Speak and Stroll of Poets and all of these different writing opportunities around the city, and it's really helped like me to branch out
and network
and like build my own writing and see what people have to offer outside of MacEwan, because MacEwan is a lovely place. I don't want to discount that at all, and there's amazing writers in here, but it is really interesting to see outside of a university setting what people are doing.
Can you share a memorable moment while writing your anthology piece? Like something that really sticks with you other than getting like the physical copy?
Yeah. Of course. No, while writing these pieces, not necessarily while writing these pieces, but after they had been written and after they had been submitted, we had to go through a very substantive editing process. And I'd never really done editing, let alone editing with editors. And it was a really interesting process, and it really made me look at my work in a more technical way to see like my rhyme and my symbols and my metaphor, how that evolved across the page. Particularly for Delusions of the Telephone Wire, my editors were very conscious about symbolism and metaphor. They like every single line they broke down and they were like, okay, what does this mean? What is the tie-in with this? How can you like develop on this idea throughout the poem? And that process, even though it was difficult at the time and something totally new to me, is now something that I'm quite grateful for and something that I try to incorporate into my writing all the time.
That's awesome. I do find that a lot of people, when they're challenged, their creative work is challenged, sometimes it can be really harsh, especially for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it was memorable and positive for you with the Bolo Tie Collective. But do you have any new works coming up? Anything? Are you going to submit for the next anthology coming up?
I have submitted already for the next anthology. I've submitted 2 pieces. Whether or not those get accepted, we'll see. But I've submitted those. I'm going to be submitting here shortly to a couple like chapbooks around the city. And I just submitted to Frontenac House, just a collection of poetry that I wrote by myself.
That's so exciting.
We will see whether or not that gets accepted or not. That's a future thing. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure there will be more things to come.
Thank you so much for being here. I do know students have a crazy busy schedule, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to come talk to the Bolo Tie Collective as well as myself. So I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. This was lovely. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Bolo Chronicles. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Zac about his personal experiences and how it has shaped his poetry. The theme music is by MLAP 101 with editing done by Emma Morrison. If you enjoyed what you heard, subscribe on YouTube and click that notification bell. And follow us on our socials at the Bolo Tie Collective.